Hi, I'm Steve from the Rooted Podcast, and I hope you can join me every weekday for a 5-minute or less devotional word study or insight into Scripture to add to your day. Welcome to Fruit Snacks. Hey everyone. In today's episode, we're going to do a word study on foolish. What does the Bible mean when it says that something is foolish, or when it calls someone a fool? Does it mean what we think it means? Not really. If we look closely at the Hebrew word that's being used in verses like Psalm 14:1, which is a pretty famous use of the word fool, the choir master of David, the fool says in his heart, "There is no God." What we see is that this word is the Hebrew word Nabal or Naval, and on its face, it is often translated as foolish or senseless. Now, when we think of the word fool in our modern context, if it even gets used, maybe we'd have to go back a little bit more in our history, our language's history, in order to get to a more robust usage in everyday language. But it tends to refer in English to someone who is of lower intelligence, or who is stupid or ignorant, or who just doesn't get it. A very long time ago, it may have even referred to someone who was mentally handicapped. But is that what the Bible means? Is that who this term fool is referring to in the Old Testament? Not at all. And I want us to see that because when we look at several examples, it will become apparent. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 6 says, "Do you thus repay the Lord, you foolish and senseless people? Is he not your Father who created you, who made you and established you?" And then later in that same chapter in verse 21, "They have made me jealous with what is no God. They have provoked me to anger with their idols. So I will make them jealous with those who are no people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation." In Deuteronomy 32, this idea of being foolish is directly tied to idolatry, to the forsaking of the one true God, and to the pursuit of other lesser gods and beings. Then if we look at Psalm 14:1, once again, we see the verse in its full context. "To the choir master of David, the fool says in his heart, 'There is no God.' They are corrupt. They do abominable deeds. There is no one who does good." In Psalm 53:1, we see the same sentiment echoed. "The fool says in his heart, 'There is no God.' They are corrupt, doing abominable iniquity. There is no one who does good." Psalm 74:18, "Remember this, O Lord, how the enemy scoffs and a foolish people reviles your name." One more, Isaiah chapter 32, verse 6, "For the fool speaks folly, and his heart is busy with iniquity, to practice ungodliness, to utter error concerning the Lord, to leave the craving of the hungry unsatisfied, and to deprive the thirsty of drink." So when we take all of these examples together, and there are more throughout the Old Testament, but when we look at them on the whole, what we find is that when the Bible uses the term fool or foolish, it is almost never referring to a mental deficiency. It is nearly always referring to a moral deficiency. The Bible uses the term fool to describe someone not who is stupid, but who is unconcerned with God or outright rebellious toward God, someone who has a rebellious spirit. And the Bible would look at that and say that obviously if God is real and exists and a person wants nothing to do with him and has rejected him, that's a very foolish thing to do. And it is stupid in its own way, but it's really not the focus of the word. And so that should challenge all of us, because the smartest, quote unquote, wisest among us on the Bible's standards can absolutely be fools. It has nothing to do with being unintelligent, but unconcerned with God. You and I can be a fool on any given day if we choose to go through that day without giving much thought to the one who created us.